Good morning. Welcome to episode 70 of the Driller Newscast, a weekly update on the news and stories impacting the drilling and water industry. I'm your host, Brock Yordy, and this episode is brought to you by TDH Manufacturing. Thank you, TDH. TDH pump hoists are built to work as hard as you do, made with the latest technology to deliver the power and precise handling required on today's job sites. TDH will provide superior performance and unmatched versatility day in and day out. Great pieces of equipment. Thank you, Scott, Cade, team, for sponsoring the newscast. We got a great episode this week. We have Jason House, National Groundwater Association president. He's going to talk about his first 8 months in office and all they're doing. And you can see behind me, we're at the South Atlantic Drilling Jubilee, and it's going to be a great week. Wait for next week's episode to see all the great interviews that we pick up during the show. For this week's feature and industry professional, we have the current National Groundwater Association president, Jason House. How have you been doing, Jason?
I've been doing great, Brock. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to your audience. It's been an interesting summer. It's been a very active one. I've been traveling around a lot. I recently got back from a trip out west. I do a lot of work at some Superfund sites in the West, and I happened to be traveling to Montana recently, and traveling through Salt Lake City. I was on a plane, got on the plane, and a gentleman said to me, "Oh, Groundwater Foundation, huh?" He looked at my backpack, and I said, "Yeah, and associated with the Groundwater Foundation." He said, "Oh, and are you an NGWA member?" And I said, "Yes, I'm an NGWA member." And he said, "Oh, I've been a member for 20 some odd years." And we got to talking about what he was doing in Salt Lake and where I was going. And he was actually in the process of retrofitting a sonic rig with a larger sonic head on a smaller platform, so to give themselves a little more power to get into smaller, tighter sites. And so we had a long conversation about where we worked, and he shared that he'd worked in all across the country, from Massachusetts all the way out to Oregon and other locations. And we sort of shared some war stories about traveling around the country and drilling in different geologies, and some of the pitfalls of working in sites. And so it was very interesting. It's nice to connect with folks, and it's always a good groundbreaker when somebody recognizes some of the, or icebreaker rather, when somebody recognizes an organization that you're with and is a member of that.
So was this a service tack for a rig manufacturer?
I believe he was or is now. But he's also a driller. He said he was licensed in multiple states, and he was working in a particular location retrofitting this drilling rig.
So we're a tiny industry, and if I was to guess, Greg Holiday with Eagle Camp would be a guy that would be out there doing something like that. Or it could have been Ray Rusey, or there's plenty of gurus, lots of the Bort guys.
Yeah, I think he was with Bort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and it's kind of a nice way to break up your travel monotony. Yeah. So I had a long conversation as we were sitting on the bus waiting to get on the small plane into Montana.
It's always fun or scary, the trips you take to get into the remote locations. Me flying out of Montreal to go to Val-d'Or, Quebec it was one of those planes that you sat where people faced you, and there was only eight people on the plane, and really Salt Lake City, I got to the point where I would rather drive to Elko than fly Salt Lake City to Elko, because I just felt like every time we went to land in Elko, the plane was just falling. So I was just like, I'll drive it. It's a pretty drive, Salt Flats. So the adventures we get.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough ride out of Salt Lake. I'll admit that. It was a bit bumpy, and landing too at the airport I was going into. It was, you get out west in the summertime, you get all that heat rising, and it gets a little bumpy as you're coming in.
Well, that's fantastic. So we're 8 months in to you taking on the gavel, and you are an engineer and not a driller. And we talked about this last year in uh, uh, Las Vegas, which maybe you are a driller as well,
No,
but no.
no, I'm not. I'm a geologist actually, so I'm probably I have some of my friends on the board, of one in particular who refers to us as rock sniffers, but I think we probably lick rocks more than we sniff them when we're trying to characterize them, particularly their halite. Not in the environmental business, though. That's generally a
No.
no. But
So how's it been? Have you gotten to meet the folks you've wanted to meet and work on the initiatives you wanted to work on?
yeah, I mean, I think it's been a great, it's been a very fast 7 months or so. There's initial gearing up in the first month or two, and trying to lay out the agenda for the year and what you're hoping to accomplish. And one of the things about NGWA is we're a pretty sizable organization in the groundwater industry, in the U.S. And so um, normally it's small moves on the rudder to steer a big ship, and really maintain our course with the things that we've had planned for a while. And so in some respects, that's a bit of a comfort, because you know that there are long-term projects and long-term goals that you're trying to accomplish, and so you need to make sure that you're working toward those. And I think we're doing a really good job. We have a high-functioning board. We all get along well together, but we're not afraid to speak our minds and really sort of hash things out in the boardroom. But then, once we've got a decision, we move forward with it as, more or less a unified front, which is what you need. And, we have some really good initiatives going right now, and things that we're aiming to improve the business climate for our constituency, and the ability for them to run profitable businesses. And we're really excited too about the education initiatives we have going on with, like, Awesome Aquifer and NGWA University, which are, trying to establish a continuum of education from the very youngest ages, first, second, third grade, all the way up through high school and into college or trade school, so that folks can really get a passion for our industry and become involved in our industry. We need those workers.
The workforce development webinar that happened a few weeks ago with NGWA, Ben and Dave did a great job of talking about, us as members using awesome aquifers to inspire as early as we can, and then to continue that on to the great programs of the workforce development for the college professionals now that are coming out that NGWA is going to host. We know there's an age gap. You and I on this call right now are fairly young to our membership, and I just turned 43. So it's one of those things that we need to grab every bright-eyed 18 to 30-year-old we can get right now to I think the statistics 100,000 water professionals we need, from drilling to regulators to engineers to geologists, hydrogeologists, and then water and wastewater operators is where we're at, and we need those by 2030.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a symptom of sort of I think a retreat from sort of the technical fields that we've seen, and now we really need to inspire the generations to jump back in. And I think, we've had some really good feedback on Awesome Aquifer at the young ages, and how engaging that program really is for young people. And that's the thing about kids. They want to get in there. They want to get their hands into things and learn by touching and doing, right. And so I think those kind of tactile learning environments are great. And we have a lot of engagement. We have a lot of people who are looking to get Awesome Aquifer kits into their classrooms. And so I think that's why through the Groundwater Foundation, our sponsor classroom program is really a great opportunity for folks to sort of lay the foundations for a future generation.
I just read a great article on this. We've actually, the paradigm is completely flipped. So as children, the reason I ended up becoming I was a well driller's son, but a mud engineer, is I was that kid that was in his Sunday school clothes muddy every week, right? And
Yeah.
so earlier generations, we were in the rocks and the mud and doing and experimenting. Whereas my son's generation and Gen Z, they've had all the technology and knowledge right in front of them. And so, as we were graduating high school and all the rest of the things that were happening, we were knowledge hungry. And a lot of that was going to higher learning education beyond, just a community college. And so now we're seeing that. And the environment, water, everything happening right now is so fast and important that it's a big purpose.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you look at the nexus between let's call it environmental impact and water resources. I mean, there's a huge nexus there. It's particularly with groundwater, right? We have PFAS and all of these other emerging contaminants that are really impacting groundwater sources, and those are the very sources that we're going to need to rely on in the future as population grows and as climate change continues to wreak havoc on our environment and our resources. So it's really important that we have a well-trained professionals and a professional core that are interested in helping us out for our future. With things like managed aquifer recharge, for instance, and cleaning up PFAS sites. So.
It is very important. When I was studying groundwater science in the early 2000s, I had mentor professors talking about aquifer recharge in Israel and the issues with the Gaza Strip. And at the same time, they're going, yeah, there's this emerging contaminant that's, polyfluoral alkyl substances. It's probably going to be a big deal, And
Right.
here we are 20 years later going, oh my goodness. So,
Right. Right. And we have action limits that are so low, so low that it takes very little, amount of PFAS to create an issue, and it's everywhere.
it is very great. The group NGWA is brought together as experts, from the drilling aspect and the engineering and the science and geology, hydrogeology, for these roundtables. And it's I'm just going to say to all the listeners out there, like, the NGWA is on top of it, and there's a lot of good discussions that we're having, and we're also looking at, this is going to be multiple generations of, members involved in,
Right.
5, 6, 7, who knows, at 4 parts per trillion.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it's going to take all of us working together, from like you mentioned, from from drillers to scientists, engineers to regulatory personnel. We're gonna all need to work together to get to a solution here, and I'm pretty excited about the work NGWA has done in terms of pulling together a task force to really get knowledge out there and to develop understanding about this issue and how to approach solving it. Right, we don't have solutions yet. We have pathways, and we need to make sure that we're forging ahead and making sure that we're cleaning up the resource that we're all dependent on in our industry, right?
Absolutely. And it's great. I'm really excited being an NGWA member right now, with looking at that aspect. The fly-in really motivated me, and I want to just scream to everybody that we need to have as many members as possible at the fly-in. But now we're going into fall, and NGWHQ is getting a geothermal loop field. And we talked a little bit a moment ago about climate change, but the partnership and the joint convention with, having ICSPA come in, it's such a huge piece to everything we're doing right now, not to mention as many members drill water wells as drill geothermal. So it's
Yeah,
pretty.
it's a huge part of our industry, right? So we're exploring a geothermal loop field at headquarters and looking at all the financials associated with that right now, um, and really, it goes back to also that nexus between water and energy, right? So there's a huge water energy nexus. So things that you can do to on the heating and cooling front that prevent you from moving or evaporating large quantities of water, let's say, for instance, for cooling needs. That's where I think geothermal really fits into the whole resource preservation aspect of things.
So we've talked PFAS and geothermal, which seem to be huge on all of the members' minds right now. When this drops, we'll only be 4 months from all meeting up in Las Vegas. What are you excited about with Las Vegas?
Well, the Las Vegas show is always a great show. I mean, it brings a huge crowd. We have, a huge space that we can showcase our new technologies, and folks can get to see the new rigs and interact with the manufacturers and suppliers. And so I always look forward to I look forward to Groundwater Week every year, no matter where it is. But Las Vegas is always a big draw, and the ability to interact with more of our industry than we would in, say, some other smaller venues. So, but I'm just excited for the ability to meet with folks again and see the new technology and see the new demonstrations that go on there, and interact on the science side of things with the presentations that we'll have, and the various workshops that will be going on. It's a great place to learn and get your CEUs too. So I think there's a little bit of something for everyone there. And so, it's funny, it's a whirlwind. I feel like I get there and it's over, like that, even though I've spent 5 days in Vegas. So
It feels like just a few months ago, I was sitting down with you and Brian, there.
right.
And then, that interview happened, the show floor opened, and then I was on a plane heading home. And I'm like, I didn't see nearly as many of my friends as I wanted to. It was like a wedding where you're at the end of the night, you're like, wait, I paid for this open bar, but I didn't really get to, take a moment to
Yeah.
savor the moment.
Yeah, it's funny, and especially on the board, right? Because we have a lot of meetings that week, so every spare moment it seems filled, and we're bouncing from meeting to meeting to getting out onto the show floor and shaking hands with folks and talking to people about their where they see the industry going and what's important to them as NGWA members. So the board is always really busy, and then when you add on to it, well, hey, I kind of need to get 4 hours of CEU somewhere in here too. It definitely feels like you're just marching from point to point, and at the end of it, you're kind of like, wow, what just happened?
And there's some big things happening this year in December with talking about how we can operate our businesses smartly.
Right.
We're going to have a big focus there. There's the big discussion with everything that's happened with the federal infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. All of that money is just coming out for geothermal and green energy. So we have folks doing that. I know drillers now that have gotten involved in solar farms and wind farms. So we're quickly going from our old school, we had our water wells and we had our geotechnical and we had some other stuff going on, and geothermal was always there, to we have all of that plus the technical investigation we still need to do for some of these forever chemicals that's coming out. We're gonna be pulled in many different directions in the next 5 years.
We really are, and I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, workforce development is a key piece of that, because Well, I mean, as it is right now, drillers are 8 months out before they can get to another job, and we work on a number of sites where we're sending out bid proposals and whatnot, and we're getting answers back like, yeah, we want to bid on this, but we are just swamped, and we'll, so earliest we can get to is 6 to 8 months, which is it's crazy. And that's why we really need to inspire folks to come join our industry. And you think about the good paying job that drilling is, and everything in the environmental industry. It's very hard to find something that is not a good paying job, honestly. Particularly for people who are smart, willing to work hard, and get the job done. Kind of the sky's the limit in terms of at least from my perspective, job satisfaction and the knowledge that you're contributing to a good cause.
It's inspiring on the fact that, there's very few other careers that you can be so impactful, from bringing a water resource out of the ground to figuring out where that plume is going, or fighting climate change, or cathodic protection, or building a road. It's really, I say this often, civilization doesn't progress without drilling. Like it starts every aspect. We need that investigation. So it is that purpose is one of our biggest elevator pitches for this next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for folks who really want to contribute to society in a positive way, and for folks who are driven by, at the end of the day, having something to show for their work, this is a great industry to become involved in, and particularly if you're looking for, like I said, ways to contribute.
Well, excellent. Any big memories that stick out from this first 7.5, 8 months?
Well, it's like I said, we have a very high functioning board, and there's times when the board's meeting, they get a little talkative, and we go back and forth a bit, but at the end of it, we always come back to a solution that moves us forward and is agreeable to pretty much everybody on the board. I won't say everybody's happy all the time, because that's not how things work, right? And so compromises happen, and we are able to forge ahead as a unified unit. And I think that, to me, speaks volumes to the folks that we have on the board. They are really good people, and I've never met a better group of folks to work with than who I'm working with right now. So hats off to NGWA's board of directors. They're great, really motivated bunch of people, and I love working with them. We just got back from our mid-year meeting, which we had in Arizona. It's hotter than the Dickens out there, but it was good. We had a really good meeting, some planning for the future, and there was some interesting happenings in terms of, did some Jeep tour things and kind of team building events, and that was all really good. And staff does a great job keeping us on track, and Terry Morse with as a CEO, keeping the board apprised of the things that are coming up that we need to deal with, and that benefit our industry. So hats off to the staff too, because they're a great group, and I don't know how NGWA would function without that core there.
It is an awesome core. It dumbfounds me a little bit of all the times I've heard of great trips to like Jackson Hole and the upper Midwest, and in the middle of July, you folks all chose to go to Arizona.
I chose Arizona. I don't think it was anybody else's. I don't think anybody else's first choice, but I just love the West. I love the Southwest. I went to school out in Colorado, so now I'm back in Maine, but I love to travel and get out there any chance I can get. So.
Well, excellent. I know you're very busy, man. Thank you for your time today. It's been awesome to catch up, and I'm sure I'll grab you and Dave Trout in December, and we'll sit down and do this one more time.
All right. That sounds great, Brock. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us for episode 70 of the Driller Newscast, brought to you by TDH. give Cade and Scott a call. Have a discussion about what you need in your pump hoist. TDH provides superior performance and unmatched versatility day in and day out. Next week, we'll take a good look at one of their pieces of equipment that I had a chance to walk around and talk to the guys about. Thanks, everybody.